Hold on to your butts, it's a new week and a new episode, so coming up on Worlds Asunder.
But how I use the words to tell the story and how the characters use the words I give them, that's actually the most interesting part for me, because it lets me see how much I can do to make the world seem richer and just more fantastical without being difficult to understand.
We've read about far-off lands and adventures of heroes, but how do we elicit those feelings of excitement, tension, and wonder in others?
Creating new worlds in any genre might seem like a daunting task, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel for every story.
Welcome, weary writers, to the Book Career Network of podcasts.
My co-host is David Shadoin, better known as Shady. It's not just a descriptor, it's also his moniker.
And she's Haley H.Y. Gregor, your friendly post-apocalyptic wasteland elf.
Together, we've got enough published to fill a small shelf, but why should you listen to us? Because we called in some favors.
Our friends and colleagues, some of the best and brightest, join us weekly to bring you tips and tricks for your world building and character development. So, open up your ear holes,
Get out your pen and paper,
and get ready for us to tear Worlds Asunder. That's right, this week we are with Mel Todd again for part 4. Listen up.
And it is. And to a huge extent, parasocial relationships are extremely important. Like, okay, Gail is a funny example. So, I hadn't met Gail until Twitter. But a friend of hers named Dan Sawyer has a podcast. And I got to know him years ago. And we became really, really good friends. Well, he and Gail are really, really good friends. Like, they've slept over at each other's houses, done writing retreats and stuff. So both of us knew Dan, but we had actually never even spoken to each other. So it is this weird parasocial relationship, in that I actually knew a lot about her, but I'd never met her. Actually, she knew about me because Dan had talked about us to each other. I told you I talk more than what I normally do. But it is part of your world building. It is one of the great things about being an author is the more you push what you write, the wider your own horizons become. It's one of the main reasons to travel. You experience things that you wouldn't get to experience if you never did or never tried to do anything. So even something as simple as, oh, I want to write a story about an astronaut. Well, you're going to have to do a lot of research, and your horizons are going to broaden. And then the people who read your story about the astronaut, well, their horizons are going to broaden. And it's like this never-ending cycle of growth and understanding that I just think is awesome. I mean, I have not read not Hail Mary, but the first one, Mars, Project Mars. What was Andy Weir's first book? My mind just went poof. The Martian, yeah. The Martian. I haven't read it, but I watched it. Oh my gosh. I learned so much and had so many questions pop up going, oh, well, that would be an interesting way to do it. Well, now what do you do? And again, your world building expands other people's assumptions and perceptions of what's possible and what can exist. And the more we do that, well, quite frankly, the better the world becomes.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, is there are, it's funny. Wikipedia even has a thing on this where there are 7 main themes of stories, right? Mm-hmm. But there are almost near, but not quite near, but not quite exact, an infinite amount of ways to tell those 7 main themes. Yep. And that's like when you go and do a different story in a different way, on it's not that you can be influenced by stuff that already exists. And I'll tell you, like Companion to Ghost, we always pitch as LA Confidential meets John Wick. there are plenty of influences out there. So long as you come up with the unique twist that makes your story your own, that's when we finally get to that story that is unique and will sell to a certain audience.
One of the pieces of writing advices I heard, and I don't know who said it at this point, but don't worry about you retelling the same story. Shakespeare did them all, and he did them better than you. So don't worry about it. And in a way, he's right. Shakespeare hit most of the major story types, and he probably did them better than you're ever going to. And if not, well, please prove me wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong. So don't worry about it. Just tell the story that is you and is unique to you. You want to do a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood where the wolf is actually the innocent person and Red Riding Hood is a predator. Awesome. Go for it. Make me believe it and write the story. If you want to do a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, but Juliet's a cat and Romeo's a dog, awesome. Do it. There was an entire studio that would have bought that story years ago. But just tell the stories that you want to tell. And remember, this is probably, there's not a lot of truisms in writing. I am never going to tell you there's only one way to do something or anything else, except for the Oxford comma. The Oxford comma is always right. But it is a truism that you can't edit a blank page. You have to write something, and then you can ask friends, you can ask people to help, and you can make the story better. But if you don't write it down, I can't help you with your world building, I can't help you with your story, I can't do anything until you actually write the story. Yes, you can pry my Oxford comma from my cold, dead hands.
We'll refer you back to Maya's episodes that we did with editing, and you can determine whether or not you want the Oxford comma based on who your editor is. But
no. I literally have editing things. I'm like, I detest the word cannot as one word. If I write it, it's either can't or cannot. Do not correct this. I don't care. It is can not. They're two words. Don't care. It is an Oxford comma if it is a list. Now, if I say I went to the store and Shady and Haley went someplace else, then there is not a comma. But no, I actually have things that I say, no, I understand that this is not current. Don't care. This is my word, my work. And I'm going to do this because cannot. I hate cannot. It's ugly.
For those of you submitting to Badass Publishing, now you know. For the rest of you who are not going to be submitting to Mel, you should probably look up what their preferences are on the word cannot and figure out what it is.
It's called a style guide.
Yeah, style guides. We talked about it really recently. Go find them.
So my biggest issue with cannot is the only reason those words were put together was because of the blasted telegram and classifieds, where you got charged by the letter. So since you could still understand it, if there was no space between the two, they eliminated the space. It's two words.
To be fair, I'm gonna differ from Mel on this. I prefer the one word cannot, but that's just how I was raised. Has nothing to do with writing.
No, and I don't mind it in stories. It doesn't throw me out of a story. It's just I don't like to use it in the stories I tell. It's also like I use tildes to indicate telepathy because I like tildes and I reserve italics for internal thoughts.
I like that.
Yeah, the biggest issue I've run into with that is I have to be really careful with narration. Because as a reader, you've looked at it, you automatically know that I'm talking to Haley via telepathy. As a audiobook person, I have to add a descriptor because otherwise you don't know that I have switched to telepathy and not everybody else can hear. You go, oh God, JD's really hot. Have you nailed that yet? That could change the story just a bit.
The answer is For most people, no.
No, you just made his night.
You did. You absolutely. Mel knows how to flatter me. That's the real thing. All right,
No,
Mel, we got
you could do
one.
an entire another chapter or entire another podcast on the difference between writing books for audio narration versus not, because there are some differences.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. I don't think
I
that's
recently
one
had to
we've
do that for the
considered yet.
first time. I had to do a pronunciation guide for my upcoming audiobook series, and it made me think about things very differently. So,
Well, not only that, there's also a lot of little things that are, quote, rules with writing that you need to throw out when you go to audio, because it breaks, and it breaks
yeah.
hard sometimes.
We had one question, final question for you. The one question we haven't gotten to yet. And it's funny because I'm pretty sure Haley watched me move it on our notes to the end because I was saving it for the end. What is Mel Todd's favorite part of world building, and what do you find most challenging?
Honestly, or I don't know if this is going to be a surprise, it's the language. I like playing with how you can use language differently in world building. Simple examples are if you have somebody from the South, they speak more with the Southern drawl. They'll have colloquialisms that you wouldn't get from somebody who's from the West Coast, or even just understandings. Simple one. I worked as a nanny in Connecticut for a while back in my teens, and the mother said, would you go get that from the drawer? And I'm like, the what? The drawer. The what? The drawer. I'm like, I have zero idea what you're talking about. She meant drawer. Drawer. She did the same thing to me with quarter. I'm like, I have no idea what a quarter is. My husband did the same thing to me one day. We almost got in a fight. He calls me. He's like, yeah, I need you to come jump me. What? I'm at the grocery store. Come jump me. What are you talking about? I need you to come jump me. I'm like going, look, I'm not that much into PDAs. Just no. And finally he's like, my battery died. I need to come jump me off. And I'm like, why didn't you say that at the beginning? He's like, I did. I told you I needed to jump. And I said, no, you said jump me. If you had said I needed you to jump me off, if you had said, yes, I'll be there in a minute. Okay, I, from California, had zero idea what jump me meant. I kept trying to imagine he's jumping off a curb. It totally lost. Language. Language is a lot of fun. The other thing is how you use language. So I wanted to make the epic feel epic. Well, that meant not only did I want to make sure I didn't use Americanisms, and by Americanisms, I mean like okay, or fine, or thanks. I didn't want to use those. But I also wanted the language to feel richer. So one of the ways I did that is I decided I was going to write this entire book without any contractions. Well, but that changes how you say things. So instead of saying, I won't go there, well, I don't want to say that, and I don't want to say I would not, because the person's just going to interpret it as won't. So I changed how I'm going to say, I would prefer we avoid that place. And it changed the language a lot. And that was actually a really fun exercise to teach me to actually, one of the things with contractions, and we use this all the time in American, is you always say the negative that you don't want to do. I don't want to go. I won't get up or anything. So instead, I have to say, I get up to go, as opposed to I won't. I have no desire to get up or something. It just makes, I think, the language feel a lot more interesting because it doesn't read like everyday language, yet at the same time, it's 100% understandable. I'm not writing in King's English, where everything is the and the and stuff. I also replaced little common phrases like thank you. Instead of in my world, they say Eric's bless because Eric's is the head god. So instead of thank you, it's Eric's bless, which is you giving them a blessing for what they had just done for you. And it's really kind of fun to see how much information you can communicate with language and how they use the language, knowing that even though you have them talking in all of these different languages, you're reading it all in English, to make the world richer and more colorful and just more immersive, just through the use of language. And I really wish sometimes I was bilingual, because I would have a lot of fun with that, playing with some of the in-jokes when it comes to being fully bilingual. You can play, like I said, I'm learning Spanish. Well, the difference between Nina and Nino and Chica and Chico is kind of interesting. And you can actually have a lot of fun playing with that and playing with innuendos and what things mean by how you use language. Now, don't get me wrong, coming up with creatures are cool and coming up with magical and political systems are fun. But how I use the words to tell the story and how the characters use the words I give them, that's actually the most interesting part for me, because it lets me see how much I can do to make the world seem richer and just more fantastical without being difficult to understand. Wow, I got all passionate or something about that.
No, we love it.
That's why you're here.
That's exactly why you're here, Mel. It's funny because you're not the first person that we've had on Worlds Asunder to say that language is one of the most difficult things. It's not even, it is difficult, it's fun, it's challenging. And the first short story I ever wrote, which was probably the wrong way to jump into writing, was trying to do it from an alien perspective where I couldn't use normal, modern Earth human language. And so
that's a great way to do it. I mean, if you want to stretch yourself, try writing a short story and don't use any articles. Don't use a, an, or the. Can you do it? Can you use the language in such a way that you don't need any articles? Do one where you don't use any pronouns. Can you write a story and not be saying, hey, David, I want David, and David, without doing it? Can you do it without pronouns? It's a great way to challenge yourself and to, stretch your writing chops. Try writing something without what you would regard as normal words. However, do use American quotes, because I've returned more than one book because they used English quotes and I couldn't do it. I'm sorry, quotes have two little thingies, not one little thingy. I couldn't read it and I couldn't figure out a way to fix it. Two.
Mel, you're one of our favorite people. And as much as we would love to keep you around and keep talking to you, we're already pushing up on we're already pushing up on 4 episodes with this. This is the longest episodes we've ever done.
But in a wonderful way.
It was great. I loved every minute of it. If I didn't, we wouldn't keep recording. But that's Mel. I love talking to you. However, I know you've got stuff to do, and we want to have you back on later on, so we don't want to ruin your experience here by continuing to just keep you chained to your desk. So
questions.
And answering all of our questions. Where can people find you next? Okay, go ahead.
I have my Nobles Luck trilogy is going to start coming out on February 3rd, and it will be every other week till all 3 books are out. There is a free short story reader magnet available right now that you can get that will set the world up. And I'm super excited about, as you've heard me talk about writing it with. By the way, these were supposed to be short, 80,000 word, cute, little fun urban fantasies in Victorian England. No. Other than that, you can find me at Bad Ash Publishing. Most of the time and most social media I am on as Bad Ash Books. And honestly, at this point, I've been working really, really hard to stretch my social media shops, you can find me on Facebook, MeWe, X, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, Huddle, Likey, and TikTok. And that doesn't include, of course, my own personal website, which is Badash Publishing, and I do sell most of my stuff through my store on Shopify. So please buy books from me, torture me, make me go to the post office.
And all of those, if they're not on Badash Publishing or Mel Todd's personal site, we will definitely include in the show notes.
They're like, we don't even know some of the ones she just rattled off.
Here's the kicker. If our audience wants to hear about Shady's 2-hour presentation on social media that I gave to Chris Kennedy Publishing, you can leave a comment. Let me know that you want to, and I will publish it as an episode, and it will come out, and you can hear about all of the publishing or all of the social media sites that Mel mentioned, and what I think of them and how I think of them.
Huddle is just weird. Likey, I don't mind so far, but Huddle's just weird, and Likey's annoying with the 1-minute limit. But
yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, to me, TikTok is just Vine, but it's now called a different name. But
I never got into Vine.
Vine was amazing. I created some Vines back in the day, and they are now on YouTube because Vine disappeared. And I have a
YouTube channel. I forgot about that. You can even get my books and audio on free on my YouTube channel. You just need to be really nice and listen to the ads, please, because they pay me money.
And speaking of, for those of you who have ad blockers, as much as I appreciate the idea, and as much as you can use them on Paramount, HBO Max, whatever, I don't care. We're not appearing there. They haven't hired me.
Use it on the people who pay CEOs more than $1 million a year, and please listen to the ads for those of us who aren't making that level of money.
That right there. If you're listening to YouTube, please don't use an ad blocker on us. We only make money if you don't use an ad blocker.
No, you can turn the volume down. That's 100% fine.
Perfect. Haley and I were having a conversation about that the other day, but I
will say I listen to more ads on YouTube now. If I'm watching a YouTube, I'll just sit there and zone out while the ad plays, because if I'm watching their YouTube, they deserve to have the money from the ad.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've had to explain that to a couple of people where they're like, Shady, why don't you have ad blockers? And I'm like, well, most of the content I consume is people who make their money off of ads on YouTube. So you got to recognize when you're using it and when you need to turn it off. Yes. That's Shady's 2 cents of the day. Figure out what you're going to do. Just realize that you're taking money out of somebody's pocket sometimes when you're using that ad blocker.
For less than 60 seconds of your time. That exactly. You don't even have to pay attention to. Just zone out for a second. Or don't ignore all the flashies. See, those of us who grew up in the days of MetaQuest, we completely ignore all the flashies because they don't even register to us.
Turns out selective listening is the thing, and I'm really good at it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, Mel, we love having you on. We love talking to you, and just because of that, that's probably going to be now a 4-part episode. First time on Worlds Asunder, we got a 4-parter. I am so excited. This is a month worth of podcasts in one interview. I am so excited. But this won't be the last time we have you on, for sure. For sure. We will.
Well, because you absolutely need to have me on after I come back from Africa. Now,
for sure.
Granted, I don't know how much world building we'll be talking about, but I will definitely be gushing about everything I did in Africa.
Depending on if I've got a different podcast going at the time, we'll have you on for that. But the other one, I've already come up with ideas on some panel episodes I want you on. So and I know Haley's constantly brainstorming, and as much as I am very outgoing of the things that I have planned, I will let the audience know at this point that Worlds Asunder, as far as some of the ideas go, are mostly Haley's fault. So if you have complaints, blame Haley. I just host.
So if she takes all the blame, she also gets all the reward too, right?
And for the audio listeners, you can't see it, but she's just giving me a dirty look right now. Anyway.
Bewildered is maybe the better word.
Thank you all for stopping by. Mel is doing a less of a concert in 2025 because she's traveling. However, you can catch her at Dragon Con. I'm sure. Are you going to Liberty Con? No, not this year.
I might run up one night just to have dinner with peeps. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, one of the headsets died. We've been on so long, my AirPods have died.
I'm amazed my headphones are still going. It's all good.
Yeah, no, I might run up and have dinner one night, but that's about it. I am taking a year off to write all the books. My goals for 2025 are to write 7 novels plus 1 nonfiction novel and get my direct sales going and break $250,000 this year. So those are my goals.
Good goals to
so
have.
That involves writing.
So for all the newbie authors who are going to some of those cons, you know, if you see Haley or I, hit us up. If you see Mel, feel free to say hi. She might appear a little bit at cons like she is unapproachable, but like me, she's a teddy bear on the inside.
I am a massive introvert and I'm normally going, oh my God, everybody's looking at me.
I feel you.
But yeah, no, so thank you again for those of you who stuck around this long. We love you all. Thanks for listening to Worlds Asunder, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Later.
Bye.
And there was the ride that was Mel Todd. Hopefully you enjoyed talking about the character building and using language, as well as how to set up different settings. This won't be the last time we have Mel Todd on, but this is the last part for this particular interview. Sorry, there is no more, but we've got some great guests coming up after. But don't forget, her Noble's Look trilogy is out now. Go give it a read and rate it. I'm sure she'd greatly appreciate it, whether you're a new author or just somebody who's interested in world building and listening to this podcast. Thanks to Nick Thacker and Book Career Network for hosting us and doing all the work to make this show run. Make sure you go check out our show notes for all the links that we described during the show. Next week, we have Griffin Barber for Please Read the Phone Book Part 1. That man has the voice and the looks. It's just totally unfair to the rest of us. Like, comment, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and give us a share to all your friends. And as always, thanks for helping us tear the worlds asunder. Hey, we'll see you next time.